Hi, I'm Nick Powell, City Hall Bureau Chief at City and State. Joining me today for City and State TV is Camille Rivera, Executive Director of United New York. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So you are heavily involved in the push to raise the minimum wage in New York City. I'm curious. I mean, obviously the mayor made mention of this in his State of the City speech, which was kind of I guess the rollout of this push. But what do you think is driving this? Why is this reached now a fever pitch to make this to raise the minimum wage?
Well, I mean, I think for the last several years, well, a number of years anyway, there is a real deep decline in wages in the city. And while big business corporations, developers are making billions of dollars of profits, the actual wages are stagnating. A couple of years ago, we tried to raise the wages in New York State. It was a good start, but it hasn't gone far enough. And what we have seen is now that what's very important is municipalities having the power to raise its own wages and actually support the economies that they need to, so that workers could actually have a shot at raising their families and actually being able to support themselves.
And there's precedent for this kind of local wage rule. I mean, I understand that in other cities such as Chicago and I think Los Angeles as well, those cities have the power to raise their own minimum wage.
That's correct. I mean, this is not new. People have been pushing local powers and municipalities to be able to govern its own wages. It's actually working. This is not something that is far-fetched or can't be done. It's something that should be done, especially in a city like New York, where our economies are just so concentrated in one area. We really truly believe that not just in New York, but the rest of the state should have the power to do this.
Now, is $15 the ultimate goal for minimum wage, or is there a number that you're trying to reach, or is there wiggle room, I guess, in what you're looking for?
For fast food workers, for workers in general, $15 an hour, I think is the threshold that you need in order to survive in the city. And I think it's because if you've seen the cost of living in New York, if you see all the different things that we're tackling, affordable housing, the cost of food, the cost of transportation, I mean, if you talk to everyday New Yorkers, they will tell you a story, and a story of whether or not they have to choose between transportation, between food, between providing daycare for their families, for their children, and it's extremely hard to live on a meager $10 an hour. It's like $20,000 a year. Nobody lives that way, and so New Yorkers have been trying to find another way to do this, and 15 is the way to go.
Just is this kind of this push, is it involving a lot of, I mean, is there lobbying going on behind the scenes up in Albany and on the city level? Is there going to be advertising done to kind of, push this even more than you already are? I mean, what's involved in this?
Well, we have an
campaign?
education campaign. We're talking to elected officials. We're talking to the press. We're talking to everyday New Yorkers to come, and people who are low-wage workers to tell their story. Fast food workers, airport workers, car wash workers. We're asking people to come out and tell their story, educate the public. Obviously, that's a campaign that we're trying to organize, and it takes lobbying elected officials, talking to people in New York City and across the state, talking to people not just in Albany, but in other municipalities across the state about why this is an important thing to do.
So I'm glad you mentioned airport workers, because I wanted to touch on that a little bit as well. That's been a campaign that's gotten a lot of attention, especially in the Daily News recently. So where does that stand right now? I understand that Delta agreed to raise the pay for their workers, but the other three airlines have been reluctant thus far. Is there any movement in that area?
So I believe American just joined that.
Okay.
I believe, and we're actually seeing a lot of momentum. We're hoping that other airlines like JetBlue and others that actually are making billions of dollars in profits can join to raise the wages of workers. I mean, these are another set of workers, who are, in very important places, right? The airports, right? From safety to, taking care of baggage, all these different things that they do every day, and then to make the wages that they make, and not even having having a Martin Luther King Day off, right? I mean, these are workers of color, and we actually have to support them. And I think that the Port Authority and the airlines who are joining this is just, it's amazing to see. And we're looking forward to having the other airlines join as well.
And I should mention that you wrote an op-ed in Huffington Post to that end. I also want to talk about car wash workers, because that's another campaign that's been going on for a while now. What is kind of, I guess, can you kind of lay out the where that stands for us as well? Kind of what's holding it up? Is there any potential for a compromise there?
There's been a lot of movement in the car wash campaign, and the car wash campaign right now is being run by the New York Communities for Change and RWDSU, and they're doing a fabulous job. And despite the fact that it seems stuck, it actually isn't. I mean, if you actually look at the span of the campaign, there's been dozens of owners that have come to the table. Most importantly, because workers have been coming out there and holding the owners accountable. I think the car wash industry is so different in the sense that there's just a lot of different owners, and I think they have been really focused on going to places where the workers really want to take a stand and really want to fight for their right at the workplace. And so I don't think it's stuck. I think what you're going to see is legislation. You're going to see opportunities for workers to talk to bigger owners who own more car washes, to have the conversation and bring them to the table.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the mayor's universal pre-K program. So, there's been a lot of talk about whether the governor would grant the mayor's request to have a dedicated income tax hike on the wealthiest New Yorkers to pay for his universal pre-K program. Now, do you think that the mayor, he obviously went out gung-ho immediately for that proposal. Do you think that he should have, I guess, maybe tempered that a little bit to start and then maybe, work on a compromise? Or how do you think that he's played the politics of that so far?
No, I think he won with a mandate, and one of the mandates was getting universal pre-K and taxing the wealthy to pay their fair share. And I don't think there was any other way but to put forth a proposal that is a reasonable proposal. We pay taxes every day. People are allowed to make as much money as they want in this city, and that's great. But you also have to contribute to the better of society. And right now we have parents who are struggling. I have a 4-year-old, and let me tell you, getting her into the pre-K program was extremely hard, and getting her into a kindergarten program is even harder. So I don't think that it was something that he needed to temper. I think that the campaign needs to go full forward. I think that we need to be educating and being on the streets, talking to parents every single day and talking to the people that are going to listen. And I think, this is something that just is so important to the city of New York and so important to parents and the kids today. And it's one opportunity to show that we could actually bring the city together.
I'm curious, actually, as a preschool parent, do you think that the infrastructure is there to, should the mayor get the program as he wanted, to hit the ground running here with, the qualified teachers, the appropriate classroom space? Do you think that, New York City is equipped to handle that?
I think I do. I mean, I don't know the numbers. I do know when we were applying, that one of the biggest issues was part-time slots versus full-time slots. And I think that if you were able to just even expand the full-time slots, right? Like if you actually had the funding, that could actually be, that infrastructure is there. What you do need is the resources. And if you don't have the resources, you can't pull it together. But I think we can put together the qualified teachers and the qualified space to make this happen. But you do need the resources. And that's why this program is so important. And that's why this, this proposal is so important.
Camille Rivera, Executive Director of United New York, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.